Good afternoon. Thank you, Liz. And thanks for the very good introduction. I think you have managed to set up a bit the frame of this interesting conference very well. So well that you have also mentioned a few things I was planning to mention as well in my introduction, but that's fine. What you have said is definitely true. We are entering in one of the most exciting times of recent history in the field of payments and financial services more globally. And most likely payments are under massive reshuffling. Some people say it's a kind of revolution. Some others prefer to say that it's an evolution. It has started already. It is taking place now. And it is certainly triggering some both great challenges and opportunities. And I would like to capture some of them rapidly, at least from the regulator perspective. Until recently, the legislation was focusing on some fairly basic task. Moving back a couple of years ago, the main purpose of EU regulation in the field of cards payments was to protect consumer, was to set rules for licensing, and potentially, so that was the purpose of Payment Service Directive 1, the good old times now. In some instances, we're trying to fight potential abusers or misfunctioning of markets. That was partially the purpose of Regulation 924 on fees. Or was trying to set standards which will facilitate cross-border transactions or payments, and it was the case for SEPA, of course. So until recently, the purpose of EU legislation was fairly straightforward and easy. But obviously it has changed lately because of new technologies which have in a way triggered new challenges, new players, and to a certain extent new relations between supply and demand. There are now some new expectations from consumers, some providers which are able to provide new services. So all that triggers a whole set of challenges for the business, but also for us, for the regulators. We are fully aware of that. And we are ready to embrace those challenges as much as we can and as thoroughly as we can. So action and intervention is needed, and what is interesting to note is that this is a particular sector where the cooperation between the regulators, the administration on one side and the industry on another side is quite efficient and fruitful, and I'm sure we'll come back to that. And in that context, the EPRB is an example of good cooperation between payment markets, stakeholders, and also administration. And with the EU institutions, both the ECB and the EC, we are trying to coordinate and guide a bit the efforts towards some more safe and efficient and integrated ways of payments or markets. That being said, it happens that regulation or legislation has to intervene and is potentially the only way forward. And some recent examples have kind of shown that. To mention what Liz was saying, the PSD2, Payment Service Directive 2, which have been finally adopted a couple of days ago, mid-January, was to a large extent a reply to the arrival on the markets of new players. So it was felt at the time that there was a need to rebalance a bit the rules and to allow the entry on the markets of new players. So in that context, the next 2 years will be critically important. I will come back to that in a second. To a similar extent, the recent regulation on interchange fee was also necessary at a certain point to reply to some dysfunctions of card markets, but also, in a way, to encourage the industry to adapt to the new area of digitalization. To mention just one example of this, that's through the IF regulation that we have pushed a bit for co-branding requirements, for instance. So it could show that the regulation, which is proposed by the Commission and negotiated with Parliament, Member States, can serve a purpose in trying to contribute to adapt a bit the market to those new challenges. But the challenges are far from being over. There are some new trends, recent developments. Very often, the new hype debate and word is virtual currencies. There was a hearing at the Parliament at the beginning of the week. So it will create new challenges, new opportunities, new threats. The other thing which is moving rapidly, you mentioned it, Liz, and I know we will come back to that later, is mobile payments and instant payments. This is happening fast. There will be some standards, rules, hopefully, end of 2016, and some practical implementation in the coming year, in 2017. So it's already existing, of course, but potentially it will take up and develop rapidly. So if we combine those recent developments plus the kind of legislative timelines, I would say that the 2 years ahead of us are clearly critical. Critical through the implementation and enforcement of PSD2. It will have some massive impact on the markets for the consumers, and there are some intense work ahead of us, both ourselves and our colleagues and friends from the European Banking Authority, EBA. We'll be working hard on that, on some implementing rules, a strong customer authentication. All that is taking up now, and we will dedicate the necessary energy and resources to make it happen smoothly. And that's partially where the recent initiative we took finds also its place. Just a quick reminder, we have released in December a green paper on retail financial services, which is, to a certain extent, is also an opportunity for us to try to accompany all those evolutions. So for those who have not read it yet, and even more importantly, took the time to contribute to this kind of questionnaire and consultation of stakeholders we have launched, I gently invite you to do it. The consultation is open until the 18th of March, and we'll organize a conference about that in Brussels on the 2nd of March. So that's a bit what I wanted to say as a kind of opening remarks. We'll have some other views in a second. But from the regulator perspective, I think our line is to be ready to face and accompany those challenges in a both pragmatic and open way. Of course, focusing on our legislative powers, which are the one I've just mentioned, to implement and enforce the existing regulation, but also, and as equally importantly, to accompany, monitor, and follow those interesting challenges we'll hear more about now. Thank you for your attention.